Well, I want to share with you just a private thought I've got about what the trial actually means, and for people with no foresight, this just looks like a victory for race rights and black equity and all that stuff. But for folks who have just a little bit of foresight, and individuals who can see through the short term, and this is actually what's crazy is I actually respect communists for their longevity and how they plan and implement their decisions, because they don't think about the short term. This is actually a discussion. I was watching a video earlier this week about a discussion about some of the communists and some of the things that Khrushchev said back in the day, and how there's individuals now who we were led to believe were one thing, like first black president, some of these Congress members and stuff. It's like, yeah, we've got people that look like us in these positions of high authority, but in reality, they were something wholly different. Their ideology was very different from American freedom. Well, if you've got any bit of foresight, and you can kind of see like, okay, what does this actually mean for the average person? This is actually a really bad thing. And I know I'm not going to be the only one to say this, just because I know who the people who influence me and who I listen to and stuff. But you need to really, like, the way that I think, okay? I'm going to tell you my process in thinking, how I think about this situation. You have an individual who was labeled as something. So he was labeled as a racist and being Chauvin. You have an individual who actually was on drugs, who had a real legal issue, who had been in the system for a long time. He actually was doing something potentially criminal at the time. He got caught up and then was arrested, and it was like the perfect storm for a bad cop meeting a bad criminal. Well, that bad criminal, and I could say that because individuals who were actually victims of his crime would call him a bad criminal. These individuals, these two bad people, they met, and one had the upper hand because one was a police officer. So you had a bad cop meeting a bad criminal. Well, how the time mixed in this was how these two individuals, they came together and a situation was created. That situation went sideways for the bad criminal, but in the long run, it went bad for the bad cop. So how this goes in the long run, longevity, the bad criminal was relabeled and became as Pelosi would call, a symbol of justice, without people really asking a question of how is this person really a symbol of justice, when in reality, this person was actually a symbol of crime. And the person that should have been there for justice was actually a symbol of crime as well. And this is how you disable an actual justice system. First, you label individuals who are the justice breakers as justice, and then the people who are supposed to be upholding justice, those people actually are the criminals. And this is why it's important to understand how and why I respect communism. I respect the communists. I will never be a communist, I will never adhere to their ideology ever, because I know how satanic and I know how atheistic it actually is. But they think long term. And why I respect it in this situation is the people of this nation have been fooled into believing that as these labels are placed upon individuals, that these labels truly represent these individuals. So now that George Floyd represents justice, now that Chauvin represents crime, the flipping on its head has happened. And what's kind of crazy is it's actually biblical. This is actually what the Bible says. Woe to you who call righteousness evil and evil righteousness, and the like. See, the situation shouldn't have happened in the first place. There should have been another resolution to it. But if you think about this in the long run, the way that you disable and dismantle freedom is you remove its justice and you change its justice into tyranny. And this is why, if you have any bit of foresight, you understand how actually monumental this verdict was today, because now that the labels can actually stick via the media, now that people can really change what it means to be good and turn that into evil, what it means to turn evil into good, and then to make people align themselves up with, I mean, the simplest of this, the simplest of things that would draw any like true alignment, right? And then like on his face, just ethnicity. Okay, so if a person's black, well, they're black, I'm black, we should be together. Person's white, well, if they're white and I'm black, well, they're my enemy. And that's how the communists actually work. They divide people up by the exterior, by the externals, and by the things that are superficial. And how they do that over time is that they erode all systems of government, all systems of freedom, all systems of sensibility within their enemy's territories. So whether you're come from a communist nation and you insert these ideas into these places, whether they be religious or governmental or education system or the like, what ends up happening is everyone becomes the enemy. And then when justice is needed, it's not actually exacted. There's no real way to exercise the justice because justice has actually been removed. And so this is why I think today is actually very important. See, we've been waiting for just about a year for this verdict, and the people that are the communists, I think on the interior, they know just how big and what the power grab that they just did against the American people, what that equates to. But the American people don't know and understand how their freedoms were just negated, were just decimated. And you need to be aware of that, because from this point forward, it's much easier to malign you, to make you into something that you're not, based off of popular opinion. That's what happened to the jury. It's what happened to the nation. It's what happened to all of us for the sake of social justice, for the sake of political correctness, for the sake of doing what the mob says. That's actually what we just witnessed and what just took place. And as that's happened, we as the average citizen, it's only a matter of time before basically what I'm saying right now is the inevitability of all out chaos. It's inevitable now. And I'm saying this to you not as a pessimist, but as a realist. And the only way that you deal with the true nature of evil is by calling evil for what it truly is evil. And that's actually what happened today. And whether or not people agree with me or not about that, I honestly don't really. If you guys don't know this, I really don't care if people agree with me about stuff. I just basically tell you what I see, and I try to give you a discerning eye about what it is that I see. And I'm a black guy. I never was on the tip of George Floyd needs justice, yada yada. I was never on that. What I was on was, my tip was always, this guy Chauvin, he needs to be addressed as a bad cop. And George Floyd got himself caught up. I'm sorry for the loss of life. I won't say that crassly, because that's not fair. I actually am sorry for the loss of life, because that's sad and for him the way that he died and stuff. I understand that, but this whole entire situation, there was something more here that really truly not only was missed, but now it's going to be taken advantage of. And so the way that you or I as an average person, the way that we actually combat that is that we have to be able to, in our own spheres of influence, is to tell the truth. That's actually the only way that you can fight now. And I'm being real with you about that. It's the only way that you can fight now, because things will get harder for you to state your case, to state your beliefs, to state what it is that you know, understand about the world. And the reason why it will become more difficult is because now that anybody within the power structure of our government, of our cities, of our schools, of our jobs, whatever it might be, can redefine what justice actually is per the situation and the individual versus actually having a written law down. This is why the Constitution is so important, why people want to rewrite it. They want to rewrite it because it doesn't fit their narrative. Well, the way that you and I have to fight is we have to be able to tell the truth to one another, and to do so unabashedly and unafraid, and to not be afraid about the consequences of telling the actual truth. And I'll never use a phrase "my truth" because that's stupid. It's a postmodern way of saying my experience, when that's what we should say. It's my experience, okay? But the truth is absolute. The truth is unchanging. The truth isn't per the person and subjective. So that's what has to happen between you and I as the average person. We have to be able to tell the truth to one another without there being a fear of hurting feelings. Because if we're not able to do that, then there's more power that's taken. So I'm saying this because I'm just kind of processing what it is that we all just went through, and I'm seeing where I can kind of see a little bit of foresight of where this goes next. And it's just all of this is not a good place. And any people who are aligning themselves with the social justice movement, these people are not going to be happy with this because they wanted the riots, they wanted the chaos. And you and I all know it. We all know that that's what they wanted. They wanted to get some free stuff tonight. They wanted to burn the city down, multiple cities. They wanted to do whatever they wanted. I'm actually going to be surprised if there aren't riots anyway with people tonight because the verdict wasn't what they thought. But once they process and figure out, wait, we just got our way in a way that we didn't think we would get our way. So we're not be able to get free stuff, but we're going to get free stuff from other people now. That's what's going to happen next. The realization of what truly this verdict means for the average person who sits, because that's what a jury is. I mean, it's the average person, the person that is like your peer. And when that peer is intimidated to rule a certain way based off of social circumstance, that is not a ruling that truly is representative of the facts in the case. That's just not what it is. Now, you need to understand that, and I'm saying that because that's what I see, and I would love to be wrong. I believe me, I would love to be wrong, but I think I might be right on that. So I look at this as a realist. It just means that for somebody like me, that means that I'll be more bold in telling the truth and telling what I think about stuff. But it's going to actually take that for you as well, to not be afraid and to look in the face of the individuals out there who want to keep you quiet and to malign you for whatever reason, is to look in their face and tell them to shove it, that you're not afraid and you're going to continue to tell the truth. And when you do that, you might run up against individuals who don't want to hear that, and they'll be angry about it. But if you can stand on your own and do so with courage, it's going to take courage to really get through this, because what you think would be fair in a situation, individuals will believe that they can actually control it, whether or not it's fair or not, to their own advantage. And when that happens, you'll see a lot of crazy things happen, and none of us will all be in a world of hurt. So anyway, I wanted to share that. This is just another thought that I had about the situation, and I know that there's going to be more to come in this, but just understand, this verdict is going to mean a lot more for American society than I think most Americans are ready and willing to comprehend. They've not processed the depth of what this actually means to America. Take care.